Get out. Go back to where you came from. You can't just walk in here with your anchor baby expecting a free meal." Victoria Blackwood blocked the entrance. Her red Louboutin heels clicked sharp against the marble floor. "Look at you. Probably can't even afford our appetizers. What? Did you wander in looking for the food bank? Or maybe you thought this was a nail salon?" Lily Chen shifted baby Emma gently against her hip. Her voice stayed calm. "I have a reservation under Dr. Chen, 7:30. Dr. Chen." Victoria laughed, cold and mocking. "Right. And I'm the first lady. Your kind always lies, always scamming your way into places you don't belong. What's next? A fake green card? I can show you my confirmation." Lily reached for her phone. Victoria's hand shot out. She slapped Lily hard across the face. The crack echoed through the restaurant. Lily's head snapped sideways. Emma screamed, "Don't you dare reach for anything." Victoria's eyes blazed with hatred. "Touch my podium again, and I'll have you arrested. Your type always ends up in handcuffs anyway. Or deported." Wealthy diners stared. Some pulled out phones. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody helped. Have you ever watched injustice happen right in front of you and done nothing? If this story moved you, don't just scroll. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss another story that matters. 30 minutes before that slap, the black Maybach rolled to a stop in front of La Maison d'Eau, or at 7:15 in the evening. The man who stepped out stood over 6 feet tall, dressed in a perfectly tailored black Brioni suit, a Patek Philippe catching the light on his wrist. Lucian Moretti, 37 years old, let eyes as cold and gray as steel sweep the restaurant's facade. A faint scar on his left eyebrow was the only trace that his life had not always been cushioned in velvet. Marcus Webb, his bodyguard and right hand, followed a half step behind. 52, a former Navy SEAL, his face unreadable, his gaze missing nothing. Victoria Blackwood was posted at the host stand, and her eyes lit up the instant she recognized who had just walked in. She rushed forward as if she had just hit the lottery. "Mr. Moretti, what an honor to welcome you tonight. Your VIP table is ready." Lucian offered nothing but a cool nod. Not a word. He hated places like this. Hated the pretense. Hated the polished smiles and the slick flattery that slid off tongues like oil. But this was where he had to be to meet a business partner, a respectable front for deals that were anything but respectable. Victoria led them to a shadowed corner table, a spot that gave him a view of the entire dining room, while keeping his own face out of clear sight. Lucian sat with his back to the wall, the habit of a man who had lived too long in the dark. Never leave your back exposed. Marcus took the adjacent table, close enough to shield him, far enough not to draw attention. "The partner will arrive in 30 minutes. Boss." Lucian nodded and reached for the glass of red wine the server had just poured. He took a slow sip, his eyes drifting lazily over the room. Expensive suits, designer dresses, artificial laughter rising from the surrounding tables. All of them heirs, people born into money, people who had never worked a single day in their lives. Lucian despised them. He was rich too, but every dollar he owned was stained with blood and sweat. 7:30. The restaurant doors opened. Lucian looked that way on instinct. A young woman stepped inside, a baby cradled in her arms. She wore a simple black dress and pearl earrings. No designer label, no show. Yet there was something about her that held his gaze and would not let it go. The way she moved, confident yet exhausted, her back straight, but her shoulders dipped ever so slightly, as if she were carrying something invisible that still had weight. The little girl in her arms wore a tiny pink dress and slept peacefully. Lucian watched Victoria's expression change at once. The smile vanished. Her eyes turned hard and cold. The way she looked the young woman up and down, as though she were staring at trash. And suddenly Lucian was no longer in this restaurant. He was 12 years old, standing in the corner of a kitchen in an Italian place in Brooklyn. His mother, Maria Moretti, was carrying a tray of food. A wealthy customer had just thrown wine in her face because the pasta was not hot enough. "You filthy immigrant. Go back to your country." Maria lowered her head, wiped her face, apologized. Lucian stood there with his fists clenched so tight his nails bit into his palms until they bled, powerless, burning with hate, swearing he would never let anyone treat his mother that way again. 4 years later, he killed his stepfather with these very hands, when the man beat his mother one last time. Lucian blinked and returned to the present. In front of him, Victoria was blocking the entrance, refusing to let the young woman pass. Her shrill voice carried all the way to his table. Marcus leaned toward Lucian. "Boss, there's a problem at the door." Lucian set his wineglass down, his eyes never leaving what was unfolding. The young woman did not cry. She did not beg. She stood tall, met Victoria's stare, and said something Lucian could not make out, but he saw that she did not step back. "I see it," Lucian answered Marcus, but he did not rise. Not yet. He wanted to see what that woman would do. Would she collapse like so many others, or would she be different? Lily Chen stood there facing Victoria, and she did not step back even a single inch. Emma had woken up from the commotion, her eyes wide as she looked around, but she did not cry. It was as if she could feel her mother's calm. Victoria folded her arms across her chest, chin tipped up with practiced contempt. "I told you already. We do not have any reservation under that name." Lily slowly unlocked her phone. The screen lit up with the confirmation email. "I have a confirmation email from 3 weeks ago. The reservation code, and the receipt showing a $200 deposit charged to my credit card." She raised the phone, angling the screen toward Victoria. "You can see it clearly." Victoria did not even bother to glance at it. She flicked her hand as if shooing a fly. "Probably fake. You people are good at making fake things. Fake papers, fake degrees, and now fake emails too." The words landed like a blade, driven straight into Lily's self-respect. But she was used to blades like that. In 28 years of living in this country, she had heard every kind of insult, and she had learned how not to let them knock her down. "I want to speak to the manager." Lily's voice stayed even, but there was steel inside it. Victoria let out a sharp scoff, her laughter ringing too loudly in the restaurant's strange, tightening quiet. "Who do you think you are? This is La Maison d'Or, a restaurant for people with class, for people who belong here." She took one step closer, her gaze raking Lily from head to toe with undisguised disgust. "Look at you. Where did you get that cheap handbag? A flea market. And those shoes, they probably are not worth as much as the tips our guests leave." Then Victoria's eyes dropped to Emma. The child lay quietly in her mother's arms, blinking sleepily. Victoria looked at her like she was staring at an insect. "And that kid, you think you can use her to scam people? Have a baby on American soil, and then demand citizenship? An anchor baby." Lily felt heat rush to her face, not from shame, but from rage. She could endure any insult aimed at her, but an insult aimed at her daughter, no, never. She drew a deep breath, then spoke, each word clean and precise, the way she might read a diagnosis to a patient. "I am Dr. Lily Chen, a final-year internal medicine resident at Metropolitan General Hospital, Department of Medicine." She paused, letting each word settle into the air. "I was born in Chicago, right here in this city. My parents came to America 35 years ago and became legal citizens before I was born." She stepped forward, and this time Victoria was the one who had to step back. "I made a valid reservation. I have valid confirmation, and I will be seated at my table." Silence spread through the restaurant. The low murmur of conversation had stopped at some point without anyone noticing. Diners at the tables near the entrance began to turn and stare. A white woman in a red dress leaned toward her husband and whispered loudly enough for Lily to hear, "Who let that person in here? Is this still a fine dining place?" The man beside her pulled out his phone, the camera angled toward the door. He did not intervene, did not speak, only recorded as if he were watching a free show. From the VIP corner, Lucian Moretti watched everything. The wineglass in his hand had been forgotten. He looked at the young woman standing her ground against Victoria, and he saw something he rarely saw. She did not cry. She did not beg. She did not ask for pity. She stood with her back straight, eyes locked on the person humiliating her, her voice steady, not a tremor in it. In her arms, the baby lay still, as if she trusted her mother completely. Lucian set his glass down on the table. She is not like the others, he thought, and that very fact made it impossible for him to look away. Victoria clenched her teeth, her face flushing red with anger. She was not used to being challenged, especially not by people she considered beneath her. "You want to see the manager?" Victoria screamed in that shrill voice. "Fine, you will see the manager." She spun toward the kitchen and shouted, "Derek!" A man appeared from the back, looking tired, gray already at his temples. Derek Hawkins, 46 years old, the manager of La Maison d'Or. He walked toward the entrance with the heavy steps of someone who had seen too much and chosen, again and again, to close his eyes. Lily watched him coming, and a small spark of hope flared in her chest. At last, someone with authority. At last, someone who could resolve this fairly. She did not know she was wrong. She did not know Derek Hawkins had watched Victoria behave this way toward dozens of others. And every time, he had chosen silence. Derek Hawkins walked up with the air of a man who had grown too tired of life. 46 years old, 22 years in the restaurant business, and he had learned one thing: Never stand on the side of the weak. His gaze slid over Lily without settling, as if looking her directly in the eye would force him to admit something he had no desire to admit. What is going on here? His voice was flat, emotionless. Victoria spoke at once, her shrill tone like a child tattling. This woman does not have a reservation. She is making trouble, disturbing our guests. I asked her to leave, but she refuses. Lily did not let Victoria speak for her. She held her phone out toward Derek, the screen still glowing with the confirmation email. You can check the system. I have a valid reservation. 7:30 this evening, table 7, under Dr. Lily Chen. A $200 deposit has been paid. Derek looked at the phone screen. His eyes blinked once. Just once. But Lily saw it. He saw the confirmation email. He saw the reservation code. He saw the deposit receipt. He knew Lily was right, and then he chose to betray the truth. There may be some confusion in the system, Derek said, his voice evasive, just like his eyes. Sometimes the online reservation system glitches. I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. He paused, as if searching for a way to end the problem without having to face it. You can go to another restaurant tonight. We will refund your deposit in full. I can even call and make a reservation for you somewhere else. Lily looked at the man in front of her, and she understood. He was no different from Victoria. He simply hid his discrimination under a more polished layer of courtesy. I do not want a refund, Lily said, her voice hardening. I do not want to go to another restaurant. I want my table. The table I reserved. The table I have the right to sit at. Derek fell silent. In his mind, images flickered like an old reel he had watched too many times. 12 times. 12 times he had stood in this very place, watching Victoria drive guests away. 12 times he had seen brown faces, Asian faces, the faces of people judged not to belong here. 12 times he had chosen to look away, because Victoria's father could ruin his career with a single phone call. Only 3 more years until he could retire with a full pension. Just 3 years. He could not risk it. Victoria saw Derek hesitate, and her anger flared like flame hitting gasoline. Enough, she screamed, no longer bothering to keep herself in check. Get out of here right now. Go back to where you belong. Go back to Vietnam. Go back to China. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. The words struck Lily like a slap across the face, but she did not retreat. I belong here, she said, each word clear, each one like a stone thrown straight at Victoria's arrogance. I am an American citizen. I was born in this country, and no one has the right to tell me where to go. Lily lifted her hand, reaching for her phone to call someone, maybe the police, maybe a lawyer, maybe anyone who could help her in this moment, but she did not have time. Victoria's arm snapped out fast as a striking snake. Crack! The sound of the slap rang out like a gunshot in the restaurant's silence. Lily's head jerked to the side, her cheek burned. Her vision went dark for a fraction of a second, but she did not fall. Her legs wobbled, but she stayed upright. Her arms tightened around Emma, shielding her daughter from the shock. Emma let out a piercing scream, her cry tearing through the thickened air of the dining room. Around them, the world seemed to stop. Wealthy diners froze mid-bite, knives and forks suspended in the air. Derek stood like a statue, his face drained of color, but his feet nailed to the floor. At least 5 phones were pointed at them, cameras recording everything. Rachel, the Korean server, stood at the kitchen doorway, her hand shaking around her phone, but she did not stop filming. No one intervened. No one spoke. Victoria stood there, chest heaving with rage, her eyes still blazing with hatred. Touch my counter again and I will call the police. I will tell them you attacked me, that you were trying to steal, and they will believe me. They always believe me. Lily straightened. Her cheek was flushed red, Victoria's handprint stark against her pale skin. Tears threatened, but she would not let them fall. She looked Victoria in the eye and spoke in a voice that did not tremble. Call them. I am not going anywhere. From the VIP corner, Lucian Moretti set his wineglass down on the table. Not hurried, not dramatic, just a simple motion, as though he had decided to get up for a short walk. Marcus looked up, his eyes sharpening with alertness. Boss. Lucian did not look at his bodyguard. Here, just 2 words, then he moved, alone. Each of Lucian's steps was slow, deliberate, like a panther closing in on its prey. His black leather shoes tapped lightly against the marble floor, steady as a countdown. Diners at the tables he passed lifted their heads, and a ripple of whispering spread through the restaurant. Moretti. That is Lucian Moretti. The Moretti family. Those who knew the name instinctively edged away, as if his presence created an invisible forbidden zone around him. Those who did not know still sensed it in their bones that this was not an ordinary man. There was something in the way he moved, in that steel-cold gaze, in the thickened air that seemed to gather around him, that made people want to keep their distance. Lucian stopped beside Lily. He did not look at her. His gray eyes fixed on Victoria, and there was something in that stare that froze her in place. "Who did you just hit?" His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. Danger did not live in volume. It lived in the frightening stillness inside every word. Victoria opened her mouth, trying to recover her confidence. "Mr. Moretti. She is causing trouble. She does not have a reservation. Lucian lifted one hand, a small gesture, and Victoria went silent as if someone had closed fingers around her throat. "I asked who you just hit," he repeated, a shade colder. "I did not ask why." Victoria swallowed, her throat working with difficulty. She does not have a reservation. I checked." "Check again," Lucian cut in. Victoria stood still, as if she could not believe what she had heard. "I already." "Check," Lucian repeated, his tone unchanged, yet somehow colder than before. It was not a request, it was an order. And Victoria, the daughter of a powerful senator, a woman who had never bowed her head to anyone, found herself trembling as she stepped toward the computer screen. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, and the display brightened. The words appeared in plain view for everyone to see. 7:30 in the evening. Dr. Lily Chen. Table 7. Confirmed. Victoria's face went white as paper. Lucian turned to Lily for the first time since he arrived. He looked at her, at the red mark on her cheek, at the baby crying in her arms, at the way she still stood straight even after being struck. "You do have a reservation," he said. Lily looked back at him, her gaze unflinching. "I know." Lucian tilted his head slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing his eyes. "You do not need me to say that." "No," Lily answered. "But thank you for confirming it." Something passed over Lucian's face. Not a smile, only the smallest shift in his eyes, as if she had said something that made him reassess her. Then he turned to Derek, who still stood there like a silent statue. "You saw everything," Lucian said, his voice no longer cold but edged with contempt. "You saw her insult this guest. You saw her strike a mother holding her child. And you did nothing." Derek did not respond. He only stared down at his own shoes, as if the answer to his cowardice might be written there. "That is the kind of manager you are," Lucian concluded, each word falling like a sentence. Victoria, seeing Lucian's attention shift away from her, tried to claw back a shred of power. She pulled out her phone, her voice shaking though she forced it to sound hard. "I am calling the police. I will call the police." Lucian did not stop her. He did not even bother to look. Instead, he turned to Lily again. "Are you all right?" Lily drew a deep breath, soothing Emma as the child's crying began to fade. "I am fine," she said. "And I will stay until the police arrive." Lucian nodded, a small nod, as if acknowledging something. Then he turned and walked back to his VIP table, with the same unhurried pace he had used to come. He had done enough. He had forced the truth into the open. The rest belonged to Lily, and somehow, Lucian knew she would not need any more help than that. 10 minutes later, the restaurant doors opened and a man in a police uniform walked in. Bradley Cooper, 42 years old, a beer belly pushing out in front of him, wore a look of contempt, as if the whole world owed him something. He had arrived with unusual speed, only 7 minutes after Victoria's call, even though the average response time in this area was at least 15 minutes. Victoria hurried to him as though she had just seen a savior. "Officer Cooper, thank God you are here." The way she spoke, the way she ran to him, the easy familiarity in her voice, all of it said this was not their first time crossing paths. Bradley did not bother to look around. He did not ask for witnesses. He did not request to see any video. He did nothing a real officer should do when arriving at a scene. Instead, he went straight to Lily, his cold eyes sweeping her from head to toe the way someone sizes up a criminal. "You." Identification. Lily tightened her hold on Emma, fighting to keep her voice steady even as her heart skittered out of rhythm. "I am the victim. She hit me. There is video. There are witnesses. You can ask anyone here." Bradley snorted, a scoffing laugh scraping out of his throat. "I will decide who the victim is here, not you." He turned to Victoria, and Lily saw the moment their eyes met. It was not the look of an officer and a complainant. It was the look of people who knew each other, people bound by an unspoken agreement. "Vicky, are you okay?" Bradley asked. Then, as if realizing he had misspoken, he corrected himself too quickly. "I mean, Ms. Blackwood, are you injured? Lily felt her stomach drop. She understood now. This was not a fight with one person. This was a fight with an entire system. Victoria, armed with her family's power. Derek, wrapped in his complicit silence. And now Bradley, paid to protect citizens, yet standing where the powerful stood. Bradley faced Lily again and stepped closer, using his bulk to crowd her space. Give me your bag. Why? Lily asked, forcing her voice not to shake. To check whether you stole anything, Bradley said, as if he were stating the most obvious fact in the world. People like you come to a high-end place like this for a reason. He yanked the handbag off Lily's shoulder and rummaged through it without a shred of respect, dumping her belongings onto the host stand. Wallet, phone, diapers for Emma, a baby bottle, everything dragged out as if it were evidence in a case. Do you have a green card? A visa, Bradley asked, still digging through the bag. Lily felt heat surge into her face. I was born in Chicago. I am an American citizen. I do not need a green card or a visa. Bradley looked up with a mocking smile. What do you have to prove that? My driver's license is in my wallet. You are holding it, Lily said. Bradley flipped the wallet open, glanced at the license, then tossed it onto the counter as if it meant nothing. That does not prove anything. Fake documents are everywhere. He stepped in even closer. So close Lily could smell coffee and donuts on his breath. Listen, I will give you a choice. You can be arrested right now for disorderly conduct, resisting an officer, and maybe a few more charges if I feel like it. He paused, letting the threat soak into the air. Or you leave right now, and you never come back. Then Bradley's gaze settled on Emma. The baby had gone quiet, lying still in her mother's arms, wide-eyed and frightened by the strange man looming over them. This child, Bradley said slowly, each word like a blade sliding in, inch by inch, into Lily's heart. Do you have a birth certificate? Do you have proof she is your child? Lily went rigid. She is my child. My daughter. Emma. I did not ask her name, Bradley cut in. I asked if you have papers, because if you do not, Child Services will be very interested in why a woman is carrying a child without documentation proving the relationship. That was the first moment Lily felt real fear. Not fear for herself. She could endure being arrested, humiliated, struck, but losing Emma, being separated from her daughter. No, no, no. Her arms tightened around Emma, so tight the baby squirmed. From the VIP corner, Lucian Moretti watched it all. He saw the officer threatening her, saw the way the man looked at the child, saw the first true fear appear on the young woman's face. Marcus leaned toward Lucian. Boss, do we need to step in? Lucian did not answer right away. His eyes stayed locked on Lily, waiting. Not yet. See what she does. Bradley smiled, the smile of a man who believed he had already won. Decide. Leave right now, or I will cuff you and have Child Services here within 10 minutes. Lily looked down at Emma. Her daughter was looking back at her with absolute trust. Ryan's eyes. Ryan's daughter. The child Ryan had died to protect. She remembered what Ryan had said on their wedding day. You are the strongest woman I have ever met. You do not need anyone to save you. Lily lifted her head and looked Bradley straight in the eye. The fear was still there, but it no longer controlled her. No. The word no rolled through the restaurant like thunder under a clear sky. Bradley Cooper froze, as if his ears had betrayed him. He was used to people bowing to this uniform, used to a single threat being enough to make anyone fold. But the woman in front of him, her cheek still red from a slap, a baby in her arms, was looking straight into his eyes without a flicker of fear. Lily drew a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice held steady as steel. I am not leaving. I did nothing wrong. She took one step forward, and Bradley, without meaning to, stepped back half a step. If you want to arrest me, you need a lawful reason, a specific charge, specific evidence, and you do not have it. Bradley ground his teeth, his face flushing with anger. He was not used to being challenged, especially not by a woman, especially not by an Asian woman. Are you resisting the police? He roared. Do you know what that means? Do you know what I can do to you? His hand settled on the handcuffs at his hip, his fingers stroking the cold metal like a quiet promise of harm. But Lily was not afraid anymore. The fear had drained away, replaced by something far stronger. Anger. The anger of someone who had endured too much for too long, and had finally decided she would not endure 1 second more. Do you know how many people are recording video? Lily asked, her voice cold as ice. Have you looked around? 10 phones, 20 phones. Every single one pointed at you. Bradley flicked his eyes around, and for the first time he noticed the flashes, the glowing screens. the camera lenses aimed straight at him. "Do you know who I am?" Lily continued, not giving him a breath to recover. "I am a doctor, a resident physician at Metropolitan General Hospital, one of the largest hospitals in Chicago. I have colleagues, friends, lawyers, people I know in the media." She tilted her head, her gaze sharp as a blade. "What are you going to arrest a doctor for?" "Making a dinner reservation, being in a restaurant with a valid reservation, getting hit and refusing to leave." The silence in the restaurant finally cracked. An older man at a table near the entrance stood up, his voice carrying cleanly. "She has a reservation. I heard it clearly. The computer screen showed it right in front of everyone." A middle-aged woman at the next table lifted her phone higher. "I am recording. All of it. From the moment that Hostess slapped her. From the moment you got here and did not bother to investigate anything." From the kitchen doorway, Rachel, the Korean server, stepped out. Her voice trembled, but it was firm. "She did nothing wrong. She is a customer. Victoria is the one who hit her." Bradley stood there as his face began to blanch. He looked around, and for the first time in his life he felt surrounded, not by criminals, but by ordinary citizens with phones in their hands and the truth in their eyes. Behind him, Victoria screamed, her voice shrill enough to cut glass. "Bradley, do something. Arrest her. She assaulted me." But Bradley did not move. He knew that if he cuffed Lily now, with dozens of videos recording, his career would be over. Lily saw the hesitation in his eyes, and she knew this was the moment for the final strike. "How many complaints about racism are in your file?" she asked, her voice flat and merciless. 15, 20. "I am guessing you have at least 17. She did not know the exact number. She guessed, based on how he behaved, based on the confidence with which he had walked in, based on the unmistakable familiarity with Victoria. But the way Bradley flinched, the way his face went even paler, told her she had guessed right. "One more complaint," Lily said, each word dropping like a verdict. "With video, with witnesses, with proof you can't deny." She tipped her head, her eyes offering no mercy. "You will not have a badge to wear." From the VIP corner, Lucian Moretti watched it all with an expression no one could read. Marcus leaned toward him, whispering in astonishment. "She has guts." Lucian did not answer at once. He watched the young woman standing her ground against a police officer twice her size, not retreating, not trembling, and he saw something he had not seen in a very, very long time. "More than that," Lucian finally said. "She is smart." He took out his phone, dialed a number, and spoke a few short sentences that even Marcus could not quite catch. Bradley stood in the middle of the restaurant, torn between two choices: arrest Lily and face the fallout, or back away and leave Victoria to deal with it herself. Victoria rushed up, grabbed Bradley's arm, her voice rising into a near scream. "Bradley, arrest her. I will tell my father. He will protect you." And then that sound rang out, the wail of a police siren. Another patrol car, not Bradley's. The siren grew closer, louder, until a cruiser pulled up and stopped right in front of the restaurant. Bradley turned, and his face went gray as death. No one had called for a second car. Victoria had not called. He had not called. So who did? Who called the second unit? The restaurant doors opened, and a woman in a police uniform stepped inside. Officer Diana Torres, 34 years old, lean in build yet carrying the unmistakable air of competence and authority. She looked at no one but Bradley, and there was not the slightest warmth in her gaze for her fellow officer. "Bradley." Her voice was clipped, ice-edged. "I received a call about an incident here, from the office of the deputy superintendent." Bradley spun around, his face shifting from pale to ghost white. "Torres, this is my call. I have the situation under control. You do not need to." Torres lifted a hand and cut him off. "Not anymore." 3 words, and every excuse Bradley might have reached for slammed shut. Torres turned and surveyed the restaurant, her eyes sweeping over each face. "Who witnessed everything from the beginning? I need to see video and take statements." 3 people stood at once. The older man who had spoken earlier, the woman with the phone in her hand, and Rachel, the Korean server still standing near the kitchen corner. Torres watched the videos from all 3 sources. She watched carefully, missing nothing. Victoria blocking the entrance. Victoria insulting Lily. Victoria slapping Lily. Bradley arriving and failing to investigate. Bradley threatening Lily. Bradley preparing to arrest the victim. When she finished, Torres stepped to the host stand and checked the reservation system. The screen made it plain. 7:30 in the evening. Dr. Lily Chen. Table 7. Confirmed. A $200 deposit paid. Torres turned to Victoria, her gaze cold as winter. "Ms. Blackwood, On video, you strike this woman. You slap her across the face while she is holding her child. Victoria tried to gather her confidence back, but her voice shook. She provoked me. She started it. She reached toward me, and I was only defending myself. Torres did not move an inch. The video shows her standing still and speaking. The video shows her reaching for her phone. And the video shows you slapping her without any provoking action. She tipped her head, her tone edged with quiet sarcasm. How would you like to explain that? Victoria changed tactics. She lifted her chin, grasping for her last card. My father is Senator Blackwood. He will call the superintendent. He will make sure you are fired. He will. Torres stepped forward and drew her handcuffs. A senator does not have the right to hit people, and neither does a senator's daughter. She took Victoria by the wrist and turned her around. Victoria Blackwood, you are under arrest for assault. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. You have the right to an attorney. Victoria began to scream, her voice sharp as shattering glass. You can't do this. Do you know who I am? My father will ruin you. All of you will regret this. Torres cuffed her without changing expression. You can call your lawyer when you get to the station. Then Torres turned to Bradley, and her eyes were colder than before. And you arrived here 7 minutes after the call. The average response time for this area is 15 minutes. You showed up like you knew the call was coming. She stepped closer. You did not ask for witnesses. You did not watch video. You did not check the reservation system. Instead, you went straight to the victim and demanded identification. You searched her bag. You threatened to call child services to separate her from her child. Torres paused, letting every word sink in. You were prepared to arrest the victim while the attacker stood right next to you. Bradley opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Internal Affairs will want to speak with you, Torres concluded. Very soon. Lily stood there, and for the first time since it began, she allowed herself to breathe out. Emma had stopped crying long ago, and now lay quiet against her mother's chest, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Torres walked over to Lily, and her face softened. Are you all right? She asked, her voice gentler now. I am sorry for what happened. Not all of us are like him. Lily nodded, her throat tight. I am all right. Thank you. From the VIP corner, Lucian Moretti quietly slipped his phone back into his pocket. Marcus leaned in, whispering. Boss called the deputy superintendent. Lucian did not look at his bodyguard. His eyes remained on the young woman standing in the middle of the restaurant. Her shoulders slightly slumped with fatigue, but her spine still straight. I only called a friend, Lucian said evenly. Who that friend called is his business. Victoria was led out to the patrol car, still screaming and throwing threats until the door slammed shut behind her. Derek Hawkins, the man who had been silent from beginning to end, quietly vanished into the back office like a ghost. Lily stood in the center of the restaurant and looked around. Diners were still filming, whispers still echoed, and table 7, the table by the window overlooking the garden, was still waiting for her. She still had not sat at her table. After the police car drove away, the restaurant slowly slipped back into its usual rhythm. The murmurs were still there, the curious looks still angled toward Lily, but no one blocked her path anymore. A young server, not Rachel, approached with a timid hesitation. Ma'am, Dr. Chen, your table is ready. I am sorry about everything that happened. Lily nodded without speaking. She followed the server, moving past tables where diners were still whispering about her. She did not care. She had only one destination, table 7. The table by the window, looking out onto the garden behind the restaurant. The fairy lights still glittered on the branches like tiny stars, just as they had 3 years ago, just like that night. Lily sat down and gently settled Emma into the high chair the staff had already prepared. She looked around. White tablecloth, silver cutlery, crystal glassware sparkling under the lights. Everything was the same. Everything was like that night, except the chair across from her was empty. 3 years ago, in that exact spot, Ryan Mitchell had dropped to one knee. The memory surged up like a tidal wave and pulled Lily into the undertow of the past. She remembered the moment with perfect clarity. They had just finished the main course, and Lily had been laughing at something Ryan said. Then he stood, and she thought he was heading to the restroom, but instead of walking away, Ryan knelt right beside her. The entire restaurant fell silent. Lily Chen. Ryan's voice rang out, trembling with emotion. You are the strongest woman I have ever met. You do not need anyone to save you. You save yourself. You pick yourself up every time you fall. You fight the whole world if you have to. He paused, his eyes bright with tears. But I want to walk beside you, not to save you, but to fight with you, forever. He opened a red velvet box, and inside was a small, beautiful diamond ring. "Will you give me that honor?" Lily had cried like she had never been able to cry before. She nodded and said yes through tears, and the restaurant erupted in applause. Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger, then rose and kissed her right there in the middle of the dining room. "I love you," he whispered. "I will always be here. With you. Forever." Lily looked down at the wedding band on her hand. The ring was still there, but Ryan was not. He had not been able to keep that promise, not because he chose to break it, but because fate had stolen him away. 8 months ago, Lily had been 7 months pregnant. Ryan drove to the hospital to pick her up after a night shift. They were talking about decorating the nursery, about choosing the baby's name, about the future. Then a truck ran a red light. Everything happened in an instant. Lily remembered only the blinding headlights, Ryan shouting, and the sensation of being spun. In that final moment, Ryan had twisted his body to shield Lily. He used himself as a shield for his wife and the child not yet born. He took the full force of the impact on his side. When Lily woke in the hospital, the first thing she asked was where Ryan was. No one answered. They only looked at her with pity. And she understood. The last thing Ryan said, blood running from the wound on his head, life draining from him second by second, was, "You and the baby have to live." He died so she could live. He died so Emma could be born. Tears rolled down Lily's cheeks. For the first time since Ryan's funeral, she allowed herself to cry. The tears fell silently onto the white tablecloth, leaving small wet marks. She did not sob. She did not make a sound. They were simply the quiet tears of a heart that had shattered long ago, and yet kept beating anyway. Emma watched her mother, round-eyed and puzzled. She did not understand why her mother was crying. She was too small to understand loss. Lily took her daughter's tiny hand and tried to smile through the tears. "Mama is okay, my love. Mama is okay." A server came to the table, voice gentle, discreet. "Would you like to order something?" Lily wiped her tears with the back of her hand, drew a deep breath, then straightened in her chair. "Roasted duck and chocolate soufflé." She paused for a moment, her voice catching slightly. "Those were my husband's favorites." From the VIP corner, Lucian Moretti watched everything. He saw Lily cry, saw her wipe her tears away, saw her sit up straight again, as if she had hauled herself back from the edge of an abyss, and he saw her order as if nothing had happened, as if she had not just walked through hell in this very place. Marcus looked at his boss and noticed Lucian's gaze never leaving the young woman at table 7. "She is strong," Marcus murmured. Lucian did not answer. He only thought, "She does not break, not even when she has every reason to." Lily looked out into the garden where the fairy lights glittered. She remembered the night of the proposal, after dinner, when Ryan had taken her into the garden and pointed up at the stars. "I will always be here," he had said. "Even when I am not here, look up at the stars. That is where I will wait for you," Lily whispered, so softly only she could hear. "I miss you, Ryan. I miss you every day, every second." She looked down at Emma, her little girl with eyes exactly like her father's. "And I am still fighting, just like you taught me." That night, when Lily had made it back to her small apartment and laid Emma into the crib, she did not know her life was about to change forever. Rachel, the Korean server, sat in her cramped rented room and watched the video she had recorded. She had witnessed too many times Victoria treating customers cruelly. Too many times she had bowed her head and stayed silent. But tonight, she could not stay silent anymore. Rachel opened TikTok, uploaded the video, and typed the caption, "A 5-star restaurant hostess slaps an Asian American doctor, calls her child an anchor baby." She attached the entire clip, more than 15 minutes long, from the moment Victoria began humiliating Lily, to the slap, to Bradley's threats, and finally to Torres putting Victoria in handcuffs. Then she hit post. She had no idea what would happen next. 1 hour later, the video had reached 500,000 views. 6 hours later, that number was 5 million. 24 hours later, 25 million people had watched. And after 1 week, 50 million views, millions of shares, hundreds of thousands of comments. Rachel's video had become one of the most viral videos of the year. Hashtags began trending across social media. Justice for Lily. Racism at La Maison. Speak up. Stop Asian hate. Those hashtags appeared across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, spreading like a wildfire no one could contain. Asian American communities were the first to respond. They saw Lily, and they saw themselves. They saw their mothers, their sisters, their daughters, Thousands of people began sharing their own stories. This happened to me at a restaurant in Los Angeles. I got kicked out of a store because the staff thought I was a thief. They told me to go back to my country even though I was born here. My child gets bullied at school for being Asian. Hundreds, then thousands of stories that sounded the same. Lily was no longer just one person. She had become a symbol. A symbol of resistance. A symbol of dignity. A symbol for everyone who refused to be treated like a second-class citizen in their own home. The press moved fast. The Chicago Tribune ran the headline, "Senator's daughter arrested for hate-related assault at upscale restaurant." CNN reported, "Shocking video shows hostess slapping Asian American doctor, police officer, threatening victim." National outlets raced to cover it, analyze it, comment on it. Fox News tried to twist the story, raising questions about whether Lily had provoked it first, whether there was another angle, another perspective. But the video was too clear. There was nothing to excuse, and the public outrage quickly smothered every attempt to defend Victoria. Elysium Hospitality Group, the corporation that owned La Maison d'Or, released a press statement the next morning. "We are deeply shocked and saddened by the incident that occurred at our restaurant. The behavior of the employee does not represent our company values. Manager Derek Hawkins has been terminated immediately for failing to intervene. We are committed to full cooperation with law enforcement." Senator Blackwood's office stayed silent for the first 24 hours. That silence drew even more criticism than a statement might have. People asked, why did he not condemn his daughter's actions? Why did he not apologize? Was this how he raised her? Metropolitan General Hospital, where Lily worked, issued a statement in her support. "Dr. Lily Chen is one of our most outstanding resident physicians. We are proud of the courage and dignity she displayed in an extremely difficult situation. Metropolitan General stands with her and condemns all forms of racism." The Chicago Police Department had to act as well. Officer Bradley Cooper was suspended immediately, pending an internal affairs investigation. His record was reopened, and old complaints of racial discrimination began to be reviewed again. Lily's phone would not stop buzzing. Thousands of messages from complete strangers. "You spoke for all of us. Thank you for not backing down. You are an inspiration." My daughter watched the video and asked me why people hate us. I did not know what to say, but I showed her the way you stood up, and I told her that is how we fight. Lily read those messages, and for the first time she felt that what she had endured meant something. It was not only a terrible dinner, it was something larger, but not every message was supportive. Lily scrolled, and her heart went cold when she read one. "We know where you are, you Asian whore. You and your child will pay for ruining Victoria's life. Go back to your country before it is too late." Lily deleted the message, but her hands were shaking. She looked toward the crib, where Emma slept peacefully, unaware of the storm closing in around her mother. This was not the end. Lily understood that. This was only the beginning. 3 days later, Senator Richard Blackwood stood before a forest of microphones and cameras at a hastily arranged press conference. He wore an expensive gray suit, his face set in the grave protection of a father defending his daughter. "My daughter is the victim of an organized smear campaign," he declared, his voice ringing with practiced outrage. "The video circulating on social media has been cut, edited, and manipulated. It does not show the full truth of what happened that night." He paused and stared straight into the cameras like a seasoned politician. "Dr. Lily Chen provoked my daughter first. She was aggressive, threatening. Victoria was only defending herself. We will prove that in court." Beside the senator stood a formidable team of attorneys from one of the largest law firms in Chicago. That same day, they filed a lawsuit against Lily for defamation, seeking $5 million in damages. They also sent cease and desist letters to Rachel and to everyone who had shared the video, threatening lawsuits for spreading false information. The smear campaign against Lily began immediately. Tabloids, the kind everyone knew were bankrolled by conservative billionaires, started running sensational headlines. Who is Lily Chen, really? Doctor or con artist? Did she plan this stunt in advance? They dug through Lily's past, hunting for anything that might stain her name. They contacted former classmates, former coworkers, even former patients, fishing for scandal. When they found nothing, they began to invent. They suggested she was exploiting the incident for fame, that she was profiting off tragedy, that it was all a staged performance. And then the threats began to arrive. No longer just anonymous messages on social media. Now there were midnight phone calls, long, frightening breaths on the line before the caller hung up, messages so specific they made her skin crawl. "Go back to your country, you Asian whore. We know where your kid goes. That daycare on the corner of Maple. Right. You will regret not knowing how to keep your mouth shut. Your husband is dead. You want your kid dead too. One night, while Lily was feeding Emma, she heard glass shatter. Someone had thrown a rock through her living room window, along with a scrap of paper bearing a scrawled warning. Next time it will not be a rock. Lily called the police, but they came, scribbled a few notes, then left with a promise to investigate. She knew they would not do anything, but she did not back down. She called Amanda Foster, a well-known civil rights attorney who had reached out to her right after the video went viral. I am not withdrawing the complaint, Lily said, her voice shaking but firm. I am not apologizing. I did nothing wrong. Amanda let out a slow breath on the other end. Lily, you need to understand they will come at you every way they can. They have money, power, an entire legal team and media machine. They will try to crush you. I know, Lily said, looking down at Emma asleep in her crib, peaceful and unaware. But if I retreat, they win. And if they win, they will keep doing this to other people, to people without video, without witnesses, to people who do not have anyone standing with them. The bad news kept coming. Internal Affairs, after an investigation everyone knew was superficial, declared there was not enough evidence of misconduct against Bradley Cooper. He was reinstated and returned to work as if nothing had happened. Officer Torres called Lily to apologize, helplessness heavy in her voice. I did everything I could, but the system protects itself. I am sorry. And then the hardest blow came from where Lily never expected it. Derek Hawkins, the manager who had stood frozen like stone when she was slapped, contacted Blackwood's lawyers. He was willing to testify against Lily, to say she had been aggressive and disruptive, that Victoria had only been enforcing restaurant policy. Derek had chosen the side with money. He had chosen his own safety over the truth. That night, Lily sat alone in her dark apartment, the only light the street lamp glow slipping through a window temporarily covered with cardboard. Emma slept in her crib, her steady breathing the only sound in a silence so thick it felt suffocating. Lily looked down at her hands, a doctor's hands, hands that had saved so many lives, and now those hands were shaking with fear. Should I keep going? She asked herself. Is it worth enduring all of this? I could just apologize, withdraw the complaint, and it would all end. Emma and I would have peace. Then her eyes fell on the photo on the table. Ryan, his smile, his eyes, and she remembered what he had said on their wedding day. You are the strongest woman I have ever met. You do not need anyone to save you. You save yourself. Lily drew a deep breath and wiped away tears she had not even realized were falling. I will not quit, she whispered to the photograph. I will fight to the end, so I will not quit either. I will fight. For me, for Emma, for everyone who does not have a voice. The next morning, when the first sunlight slipped through the cardboard covering the window, Lily woke with a decision already sharpened in her mind. She had not slept all night, but the exhaustion did not weaken her. It burned away whatever hesitation she had left. She picked up her phone and called Amanda Foster. I want a press conference, Lily said the moment Amanda answered. No greeting, no small talk. There was silence on the other end for a beat. Are you sure, Lily? A press conference means you will be standing in front of hundreds of cameras. They will come for you, question you, try to trap you into saying the wrong thing. Blackwood's team will not let up. Lily looked toward the crib, where Emma was still sleeping soundly. They are already coming for me, Amanda. Every day, every hour. They throw rocks through my window. They threaten my child. They smear my name. She drew a deep breath. At least if I do a press conference, I get to hit back. I get to have my own voice instead of letting them define who I am. In the days that followed, Lily became a warrior. She gathered every piece of evidence she had. The reservation confirmation email, the original video from Rachel, every threatening message she had received. She reached out to people who had commented under the video, the ones who said Victoria had treated them the same way, and she found 5 people willing to step forward and testify, 5 other victims of Victoria Blackwood, people who had been turned away, humiliated, discriminated against because of the color of their skin. Then one evening, Amanda Foster's phone rang. An unfamiliar number. She answered with caution. Miss Foster, this is Derek Hawkins. Amanda nearly hung up right then, but Derek's voice was shaking, stripped of the false confidence he had worn at Blackwood's press conference. Please do not hang up. I want to tell the truth. Amanda stayed silent and waited. Blackwood threatened me. He forced me to give false testimony. He said if I did not cooperate, he would make sure I never found work anywhere in the restaurant business again. But if I played along, he would help me get a new job, better than La Maison. Derek paused, his voice catching. He lied. It has been 2 weeks and he has not contacted me once. I lost my job, my reputation, and now I am about to lose my apartment. He used me and tossed me out like trash. Amanda remained silent, letting Derek continue. I have emails, texts between me and Victoria. She has done this at least 20 times over the past 2 years, turning away Black customers, Asian customers, Latino customers. I saw it all, and I did nothing. His voice broke. I stayed silent too long. I was a coward too long. I can't keep living like this. I need forgiveness, even though I know I do not deserve it. The press conference was held 1 week later, right outside Metropolitan General Hospital, where Lily worked. Hundreds of reporters, dozens of cameras, and thousands watching live across social media platforms. Lily stepped up to the podium in a simple black dress. No makeup, only her wedding ring catching the light on her hand. She looked straight into the cameras, and when she spoke, her voice did not shake. I am Lily Chen. I am a doctor. I am a mother. I am a widow. And I am an American. She paused, letting each word sink in. I was born in Chicago, Illinois. My parents came to this country with nothing and built a life with sweat and tears. I graduated at the top of my class. I became a doctor to save lives. And I am standing here today because I will not apologize for existing. Cameras flashed. Reporters stayed silent. I will not be silent because someone wants me to be silent. I will not be afraid because someone threatens me. And I will not step back because someone thinks they can use money and power to crush me. Lily signaled, and Amanda began projecting slides onto the screen behind her. 5 faces, 5 stories, 5 other victims of Victoria Blackwood. Internal restaurant emails about an unofficial policy toward undesirable customers. The threatening messages Lily had received, including threats aimed at Emma. This is not about me, Lily said, her voice hardening. This is about a system that allows this to happen. A system where people with money and power believe they can treat others like garbage and never face consequences. Today, I am telling them this. They are wrong. The public response was immediate. A new hashtag began trending. I stand with Lily. Millions shared, commented, supported. Lily's story was no longer a private story. It had become a symbol in the fight against injustice. Senator Blackwood could not control the narrative anymore. His lies were being exposed. Evidence against Victoria stacked up like a mountain, and Derek, once an accomplice, had become the most important witness of all. Lily won this round, but she did not know that from the shadows, someone was quietly watching and helping her in ways she could never have imagined. At that same time, in a luxurious office on the top floor of a building with no name on any map, Lucian Moretti sat in front of a large television screen, watching Lily Chen's press conference live. The glow from the screen washed over his face, throwing his features into sharp relief, especially those gray eyes fixed on the image of a young woman standing alone before hundreds of reporters, facing an enormous machine of power without the slightest tremor. Marcus stood beside him, watching too. She has real nerve, he remarked, his voice edged with disbelief. Not many people dare go up against Blackwood. That senator can crush anyone he wants. Lucian did not answer right away. He watched Lily on the screen, the way she held herself upright, the way she delivered each word with the clean precision of a blade, the way she stared into the camera as if challenging the world to blink first. And in her, he saw the shadow of his mother, a woman who had endured humiliation after humiliation and still never lowered her head. She needs stronger evidence, Lucian finally said. What she has is enough to ignite social media, but to win in court, to truly grind Blackwood into the ground, she needs more than that. He turned to Marcus, his gray eyes cold as steel. Find everything on Bradley Cooper, every secret, every scandal, every dirty dollar he has ever taken. I want to know who he sleeps with, who he owes money to, what keeps him awake at night. He paused, his finger tapping lightly on the desk. And Senator Blackwood, a man that powerful, is never clean. Find out what he is hiding. I want to know who is paying whom. Marcus nodded and started to leave, but before he could reach the door, it swung open and 2 large men dragged a third inside. Tommy Russo, one of the men who did business with the Moretti family, his hands bound behind his back, his face bruised from a beating, his shirt torn and smeared with blood. Marcus looked at Tommy, then at Lucian. Boss, this is Tommy Russo. He owes us $200,000. He lowered his voice. And he is selling information to Blackwood. About us. About our operations. The air in the room thickened until it felt like something you could cut. Lucian rose from his chair and walked toward Tommy, unhurried. Each step landed on the wooden floor like the countdown of a timed bomb. Tommy trembled, trying to shrink back, but the 2 men held him tight. Tommy, Lucian said, his voice so gentle it turned frightening. "I thought we were friends. I loaned you money when no one else would. I protected you when others wanted you dead, and this is how you repay me." Tommy's mouth opened, his voice cracking with panic. "Mr. Moretti, I can explain. Blackwood threatened me. He said he would send me to prison if I did not cooperate. I had no choice. I swear I did not want to." Lucian lifted one hand and Tommy went silent as if someone had closed fingers around his throat. "I do not need an explanation, Tommy," Lucian said, each word rimmed with ice. "I need loyalty. And you failed." He gave Marcus a slight nod. Marcus nodded back, and the two large men hauled Tommy out of the room. Tommy started screaming, pleading, but the door shut behind him and swallowed the sound. A few seconds later, the screams leaked through the wall from the next room, raw with pain and desperation. Lucian did not even turn his head. He walked to the window, looked down at the city of Chicago blazing with light below, and kept thinking about Lily Chen. 2 days later, the evidence began to surface. Lucian's people found Bradley Cooper's internal affairs record, 17 complaints of racism and abuse of power across 15 years on the job. They found emails between Victoria and Derek about how to handle unwanted customers, including specific instructions on refusing service to Black and Asian diners. And most important, they found proof of transfers from Senator Blackwood's account to Bradley Cooper's personal account, totaling more than $50,000 over the past 2 years. Lucian arranged everything onto a single USB drive, sealed it inside an envelope with no name and no return address. He personally made sure there were no fingerprints, no marks, nothing that could be traced back to him. The envelope was delivered to Amanda Foster's office the next morning. Amanda opened it with suspicion, but when she viewed the contents of the USB drive, her eyes widened in shock. "Who sent this?" she asked her assistant. No one knew, but Lucian knew. That night, Lucian picked up his phone and made a call. On the other end was one of the most powerful judges in Chicago, a man who owed the Moretti family a large favor from years ago. "Senator Blackwood is putting pressure on the case," Lucian said, polite, as if speaking to an old friend. "I hear he is trying to interfere with the proceedings. It would be a shame if justice were distorted that way." He paused, letting a heavy silence settle between them. "I think justice needs to be served. I would be grateful if those with responsibility would do their duty." The words were courteous, even friendly, but both men understood what lived beneath them. Lucian ended the call and returned to the window, looking out over the Chicago night. Marcus stood behind him, studying his boss with quiet curiosity. "Do you really care about that girl, boss? She is just an ordinary doctor." Lucian did not turn around. "She reminds me of someone," he said, his voice lower than usual. "And I do not like watching innocent people get crushed by the system." He paused, a bitter trace of a smile passing over his mouth. "Even if I am part of a different system." 2 months later, the Cook County Courthouse was packed to the walls. Reporters poured in from across the country, cameras aimed into every corner, and the public watched live through dozens of television channels. This was not just another trial. This was Judgment Day. Victoria Blackwood's case was heard first. The charges were assault, civil rights violations, and a hate crime. The evidence stacked up like a mountain, video from multiple angles, undeniable, impossible to explain away. 5 prior victims, 5 people who had been treated the same way by Victoria over the past 2 years, rose one by one to tell their stories. Internal emails between Victoria and Derek about how to handle unwanted customers were entered into evidence, and a restless whisper ran through the courtroom. Victoria sat in the witness box, trying to play the victim. She wore a pure white dress, light makeup, and forced out tears as if performing a tragic stage play. "I was only following restaurant policy," she said, her voice trembling with practiced fragility. "We have rules about dress code, about appropriate guests. I did not mean to discriminate. I was only doing my job." The prosecutor, a middle-aged woman with eyes sharp as a knife, stepped forward. "What policy allows you to call an 8-month-old baby an anchor baby?" Victoria fell silent, her face draining of color. "What policy allows you to tell an American citizen to go back to Vietnam or China?" The prosecutor continued. "What policy allows you to slap a woman who is holding her child?" Victoria could not answer. She only sat there, staring down, the fake tears long since dried. Then Derek Hawkins was called to testify. The man who had once stood silent, who had once been complicit, now stood before the court, with a hollowed face carved by sleepless nights. "I saw her turn away guests at least 20 times in 2 years, Derek said, his voice shaking but not wavering. "Every one of them was Black or Asian. Every one of them had a valid reservation, and every one of them was treated by Victoria as if they were not human." He paused and swallowed. I stayed silent. I was a coward. I was afraid of losing my job, so I closed my eyes. I am sorry. I am sorry I did not speak up sooner. The jury did not deliberate long. In less than 3 hours, they returned with a verdict of guilty on every count. Victoria Blackwood was sentenced to 6 months in jail, 500 hours of community service, a 5-year ban from working in the service industry, and $150,000 in restitution to Lily Chen. But the proceedings were not over. Immediately after, Bradley Cooper was brought in. The charges were civil rights violations and abuse of power. The evidence was even heavier than in Victoria's case. Data from Bradley's body-worn camera, though he had turned the camera off, had been recovered from the police department's storage system, and it showed clearly the way he threatened Lily, the way he intended to arrest her without any lawful cause. 17 prior victims, 17 people who had been treated the same way by Bradley across 15 years on the job, rose one by one to testify. And most important, proof of transfers from Senator Blackwood's account into Bradley's personal account, totaling more than $50,000, was presented in open court. Bradley sat in the witness box, sweat streaming down his forehead. I was only following procedure, he stammered. I am a police officer. I have to investigate every call. The prosecutor showed no mercy. What procedure requires you to threaten to separate a mother from her 8-month-old child? Bradley fell silent. What procedure requires you to ask an American citizen about a green card? There was no answer. Officer Diana Torres was called to testify. She stood straight in uniform, her voice clear and decisive. Bradley did not investigate. He did not question witnesses. He did not watch video. He did not check the reservation system. He came to arrest Dr. Chen regardless of what the truth was. That is not how a police officer should act. That is how a bully acts. The jury returned with a verdict of guilty. Bradley Cooper was sentenced to 1 year in jail, fired immediately from the police force, stripped of his entire pension, and permanently barred from working for any law enforcement agency. The moment Victoria was handcuffed and led away, she cried and screamed and called her father's name. But Senator Blackwood sat in the front row, his face gray as ash, not saying a word. He had used every ounce of power, every relationship, every dollar he had to save his daughter. But this time, money could not buy the outcome. Bradley was handcuffed with the very kind of cuffs he had once threatened to use on Lily, the irony impossible to miss. Outside the courthouse, hundreds of reporters surrounded Lily. Camera flashes snapped without stopping. Microphones pushed toward her from every direction. Dr. Chen, how do you feel? A reporter asked. Lily stood there with Emma in her arms, sunlight on her face. She did not smile. She did not cry. There was only the steadiness of someone who had walked through hell and survived. Justice has been served, she said, her voice firm. But this is not only about me. This is about everyone who has ever been treated the way I was and had no one stand up for them. This is about telling the world that discrimination has consequences, that silence is not an option, and that justice, even when it comes late, will always come. The months that followed saw a wave of change spread across Chicago and far beyond it. Elysium Hospitality Group, the corporation that owned La Maison d'Aurore, was forced into major internal surgery. 12 other managers across their 85 restaurants were fired for discriminatory conduct similar to Victoria's. 20 Black and Asian employees were promoted into management roles, cracking the invisible glass ceiling that had stood for decades. Diversity and inclusion training became mandatory every month for all staff. And most striking of all, Lily Chen was invited to join the company's advisory council, with real oversight authority, not a token seat meant only to polish an image. The Chicago Police Department could not escape change either. After the Bradley Cooper case, new rules were issued requiring body-worn cameras to remain on during every citizen interaction. De-escalation training became mandatory for every officer. Officer Diana Torres was promoted into a role leading bias recognition training, responsible for instructing more than 500 officers in her first year. Within 6 months, the number of racial discrimination complaints within the force dropped by 35%. Derek Hawkins received leniency he did not fully deserve. Because he testified against Victoria and provided critical evidence, he was not criminally charged. But in the civil case, Derek was ordered to pay $30,000 to Lily. His professional reputation was ruined beyond repair, and no one in the restaurant industry dared hire a man whose name was tied to the biggest scandal of the decade. But perhaps that was the best thing that ever happened to Derek. He began volunteering at a civil rights organization, spending his time helping victims of discrimination, trying to repay the years of silence he had lived through. Lily received a total of $1,800,000 in compensation from the restaurant and the police department, It was the kind of money that could change her life and Emma's forever. But Lily did not keep it for herself. She donated $500,000 to a legal aid fund for victims of discrimination, helping people without money for attorneys fight for justice. $300,000 was set aside for scholarships for Asian American medical students, so people like her would have a chance to pursue their dreams. $200,000 went to a support fund for single mothers, because Lily understood better than anyone the weight of raising a child alone. The remaining money she reserved for Emma, for her daughter's future. The lives of the villains collapsed completely. Victoria Blackwood was released after 4 months for good behavior, but the world outside no longer welcomed her. No one wanted to hire the infamous senator's daughter, especially with her face having appeared on millions of screens under the words racist hostess. Victoria eventually found work at a retail store for minimum wage, and she was recognized everywhere she went. Bradley Cooper was still serving his sentence in prison. His wife filed for divorce right after the trial, took their 2 children, and never visited. He lost everything. Family, career, honor, pension. And every day behind bars, he had to live with the truth that the very handcuffs he once used to threaten others were now locked around his own wrists. Senator Richard Blackwood announced he would not run for re-election in the next election. The scandal destroyed the political career he had built for 30 years. Relationships, allies, the people who once flattered him, all of them vanished as if they had never existed. News outlets covered the ripple effects with relentless energy. The Lily Chen case sparks reforms nationwide. Other states begin considering stronger anti-discrimination laws. From victim to game changer, the story of Dr. Lily Chen. Lily was no longer a victim. She was a symbol. She was living proof that an ordinary person could stand up against an entire system and win. She was hope for millions who had been treated unjustly and believed they had no voice. 3 months after the trial, Lily's life had slowly returned to normal, or at least to a new version of normal. She still worked at the hospital, still cared for Emma, still tried to live one day at a time. That afternoon, she was pushing Emma's stroller through the park near her building, soaking in the warm spring sunlight and the birdsong tucked into the shrubs. Emma had grown so much, Ryan's eyes shining back from her face as she watched the world with open curiosity. Then Lily heard the familiar sound of an engine. She turned and saw a black Maybach pull in along the curb. Only a few yards from her, the door opened, and Lucian Moretti stepped out. He looked just as he had the last time she saw him, tall in a flawless black suit, gray eyes cold. Yet today something in them was different, softer. He walked toward her with unhurried steps, not rushing, as if time belonged to him. Dr. Chen. Lucian stopped a few steps away and gave a slight nod. Congratulations on your victory. Lily looked at him, a tangle of emotions moving through her. She had thought about this man for months, about the role he had played in everything that followed. Thank you, she said, her voice calm but carrying weight beneath it. And thank you for what you did. Lucian tilted his head, his expression unchanged. I do not know what you mean. Lily let out a faint smile, but it did not reach her eyes. You lie badly, Mr. Moretti. I know about the USB that was sent to my lawyer's office. I know about the call to the deputy superintendent's office that night. I know what you did. She paused and drew a deep breath. I also know who you are. I Googled you. Lucian said nothing. He simply waited. The Moretti family. Organized crime. Violence. Mysterious disappearances. People who stand against you vanish without a trace. Lily met his eyes without flinching. You are a dangerous man. Lucian was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes resting on her with something that looked like respect. Then he spoke, his voice low and heavy. I am not a good man, Dr. Chen. I have never pretended to be one. He glanced down at Emma, sleeping peacefully in the stroller. I have done things you would be sickened to know, things I will never be able to undo. He lifted his eyes back to Lily. But that night, in that restaurant, I could not stand there and watch. I could not. Lily tilted her head, curious despite herself. Why? Why do you care? I am a stranger. What happens to me has nothing to do with you. Lucian fell silent, and for the first time Lily saw something like pain flicker through those cold eyes. My mother, he finally said. She was treated the way you were. She worked in a restaurant, humiliated by customers because she was an immigrant, mocked for her accent, treated like garbage because she was not born in this country. He paused, his jaw tightening. I was 12 when I watched a man pour wine in my mother's face and call her a filthy immigrant. I stood there, helpless, unable to do anything. His voice hardened. I swore I would never stand and watch that happen again. Never. Lily understood. She understood that pain, that rage, that helplessness. But understanding did not mean acceptance. "You did not save me that night," she said, gentle but absolute. "You were saving your mother. You were trying to fix what you could not fix 30 years ago." Lucian looked at her, and something like surprise passed through his eyes. "Maybe both," he admitted. "Maybe I was saving you and saving my mother at the same time. Maybe I was trying to find some meaning in a life full of sin." Lily shook her head slowly. "I can't be friends with you, Mr. Moretti. I am grateful for what you did for me, but I can't accept what you do in the dark. I can't close my eyes to the truth of who you are." Lucian nodded, showing no surprise, no wounded pride. "I understand." He reached into his jacket and drew out a small card, black as night, with only a phone number printed in silver. "But if you ever need anything, anytime, if you or Emma are in danger and there is no one else who can help." He held the card out to her. No strings, nothing in return, just an offer. Lily hesitated, looking at the card the way you might look at a venomous snake. But in the end, she took it. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucian looked at her, and for the first time Lily saw a real smile touch his mouth, even if it lasted only a moment. "Because you are one of the rare people who do not step back. You faced an entire system of power, and you refused to bend." His voice was unexpectedly sincere. "The world needs more people like you, and fewer people like me." Then he turned and walked back toward the Maybach, waiting at the curb. But before he opened the door, he stopped and looked back at Lily one last time. "Your husband was a lucky man," he said, his voice low as a whisper. Lily felt her heart tighten at the mention of Ryan. "I know," she answered, steady. Lucian smiled, then got into the car. The Maybach glided away and disappeared into the city traffic. Lily stood there for a long moment, watching it go, the black card resting in her hand. She did not call after him. She did not run after him, but she kept the card. 6 months after what happened at La Maison d'Or, Lily sat in her small office at Metropolitan General Hospital. On the wall behind her hung the certificate for outstanding resident physician she had received the week before. Beside it were framed photographs, Ryan on their wedding day, smiling with a brightness that looked untouched by darkness, Emma as a newborn, tiny and flushed red, and the three of them in the only picture they ever took together while Lily was still pregnant, Ryan's hand resting on her belly, his eyes full of love. On the floor, Emma was taking her first unsteady steps, falling and getting back up again, giggling every time she found her balance. Lily watched her daughter, then turned to the phone propped on its stand, the camera recording. She drew a deep breath and began to speak. "People ask me if I regret it, if I regret going to that restaurant that night, if I regret not leaving when Victoria told me to, if I regret not bowing my head and accepting it." She shook her head, her gaze steady. "No, I could not leave. I can't regret it." She looked toward Emma, then back to the camera. "For Emma, for every Asian child born in this country, and called an anchor baby as if their very existence is an invasion. For every mother told to go back where she came from even though this is her home, even though she was born here, even though she has given her whole life to this country. For everyone who gets slapped, humiliated, threatened, and has no one stand up for them." Her voice hardened when she spoke of the people who had caused it all. "Victoria thought she had the right to hit me because I looked different from her. Bradley thought he had the right to bully me because he had a badge on his chest. Derek thought silence would protect him, that closing his eyes would keep him safe." She paused, letting the truth settle. They were wrong, and they paid for it. Lily's expression softened, her eyes drifting as if she were remembering something. "I was lucky. I had something many people do not. I had resources, strong legal counsel, a viral video that forced the world to pay attention." She paused, and a faint, enigmatic smile brushed her mouth. "And I had unexpected help, from people I never thought would stand on my side." She thought of the black card still tucked in the desk drawer, but she did not say more. "But what about the people who do not have those things? The people who are humiliated when no one is recording? The people who are threatened when they have no lawyer to call? The people who stand alone among wolves with no one beside them?" Lily looked straight into the camera, her eyes sharp with challenge. "So I want to ask you this. The next time you witness injustice happening right in front of you, what will you do? Will you pull out your phone and record? Will you speak up and say it is wrong? Will you call someone who can help? Or will you look down at your plate and pretend you did not see anything?" She let the question hang in the air. "Your answer matters, more than you think. Because right now, somewhere, someone is standing where I once stood. They are being humiliated. They are being threatened. They are feeling alone and powerless. Lily rose, stepped to Emma, and lifted her into her arms. She turned back to the camera, mother and daughter looking into the lens together. They are waiting for someone to stand beside them. They are waiting for someone to speak up, she said, her voice rising into a call. Be that person. That afternoon, Lily carried Emma out through the main gates of Metropolitan General Hospital. Warm spring sunlight poured down, casting a gentle halo around mother and child. Emma, nearly 1 year old, lay snug in her mother's arms, the same wide eyes as Ryan's taking in the world with endless curiosity. All at once, the little girl lifted her tiny hand and pointed ahead, where cherry blossoms drifted down on the wind, and she spoke her first clear word. Mama. Lily stopped, her throat tightening with emotion. She looked at her daughter, happy tears shining in her eyes, and kissed Emma softly on the forehead. I am here, my love. I will always be here, forever. The two of them kept walking, toward the sun, toward the future. In the shadow of the building across from the hospital, a black Maybach sat in silence. Lucian Moretti was inside, gray eyes never leaving the mother and child as they moved through the sunlight. He watched the way Lily smiled at Emma, the way she held her close, the way she walked with her spine straight and her head high like someone who had survived the storm and come out stronger than ever. And he smiled, a rare smile, real, with no trace of cold calculation, just the simple expression of a man witnessing something beautiful. Marcus sat in the driver's seat and glanced into the rearview mirror. Boss, we have a meeting in 30 minutes. Lucian did not answer right away. He kept watching Lily and Emma until they disappeared around the corner, swallowed by the crowded flow of the city. 1 minute, he said, his voice low and distant. Then at last, when they were gone from sight, he faced forward. Go. Victoria Blackwood was released after 4 months for good behavior and was now working at a retail store for minimum wage, recognized and looked down on everywhere she went. Bradley Cooper lost his wife, lost his children, lost his pension, and no one would hire a former police officer with a notorious record. Derek Hawkins spent his time volunteering at a civil rights organization, saying it was the only way he could repay the years of silence he had lived with. Officer Diana Torres was promoted and was now responsible for training more than 500 officers on recognizing bias, helping reshape an entire system. Lily Chen completed her residency with the highest scores in her class and was now an attending physician at Metropolitan General Hospital, where she continued saving the people who needed saving. Emma Chen had learned to speak, and the first word she said was Mama. This story was inspired by real events of discrimination that happen every day around the world. Justice can only exist when we dare to demand it. Stand up and speak out. Justice was served. The story of Lily Chen teaches us that human dignity is not something anyone has the right to take away, that silence in the face of injustice is complicity with injustice, and that an ordinary person can change an entire system if they are brave enough to stand up. Sometimes help comes from the places we least expect. But most of all, we have to be the first ones to stand up for ourselves. If this story touched your heart, please do not just scroll past. Please hit the like button, share this video with those who need to hear it, and subscribe to our channel so you do not miss meaningful stories posted every day. We would love to know how you feel about this story. Have you ever witnessed or experienced something similar? What would you do if you were in Lily's situation? Leave a comment below and share what is in your heart. We read every comment and value each of your thoughts. Finally, we wish all of you watching this video good health, a joyful life, peace, and happiness each day. Thank you for being with us. Goodbye, and we will see you in the next video.